Hello and welcome back to Black Hole Battles game development here on Let's Code Physics. I want to present an update that is a solution to a problem that I brought up in the last couple videos. Since we've switched to this turn-based system for our game, where you use these sliders to specify how much the ship is... Oh my, that's a bad starting position. How much the ship is going to rotate, how much it's going to thrust, a lot in this case, and whether it's going to fire. The issue that we ran into... Yeah, I died there. The issue that we ran into... That's another issue I need to fix. But the issue that I was running into was that the... those three steps, the rotation, thrust, and firing, or ready, aim, fire, if you remember you can't do that on television, is that those three steps were not synchronized for the two ships. So if one of the ships wasn't rotating, it would go ahead and move while the other ship was still rotating. And so then they weren't firing at the same time, they weren't moving at the same time. It sort of, to me, lost the turn-based feel. Like, to me, the advantage of turn-based is that you see everybody doing one thing, you see everybody doing another thing, you see everybody doing the last thing. So, so I'm envisioning there something like Robo Rally, where, the robots move, and then the conveyor belts move, and then the lasers fire, and then I guess there's the pushers and everything before that or something. But it all happens kind of in sequence. And this was sort of losing that, and I could kind of see that kind of making it more difficult to strategize. So what I've done now, and hopefully we can get a successful turn where nobody dies, is that I've got them synchronized. So they rotate at the same time, they thrust at the same time, and then if this guy had made it to his firing, they would have fired at the same time. So, like, for example, let's say my ship doesn't rotate this turn. My ship is now going to wait for the other ship to rotate, and then they both thrust. Okay, let's try that one more time. I'm going to get a successful demonstration here before we get to the code. So rotate, thrust, fire at the same time. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. So the way I've got that, it was actually a pretty simple fix. I'm pretty amazed by how simple the fix was. I'm just glad that I was able to see it as a simple fix and not get too bogged down in making things more difficult. We're going to start here in the Manage Turns routine. So this is attached to the control panel itself. So every time you click on that Go button, it activates this player action. But it also has a fixed update routine. So this is the code that gets activated every loop of the every frame of animation. Previously, we just had this chunk in here where we were checking whether the player ship and the enemy ship were done moving, and then it would reset our slider and call for the enemy to select his next action. What I've now added in is this else block. So while they are in the middle of moving, so while the moving is taking place, so this part of the if is for while the ships are not moving, or maybe I should say not taking turns. There we go. Ships not taking turns. And here is while the ships are taking turns. Ships taking turns. There we go. That's a little note to myself. It's keeping track of whether they're all ready to move and whether they're all ready to fire. So they're going to rotate first. So after they're done rotating, they're each going to send a signal that they're ready to start moving. So this moving Boolean just keeps track of true or false, are you ready to move? And the same thing with firing. True or false, are you ready to fire? And so this ready to move is only going to be true when both moving variables are true, both for the player ship and the enemy ship. That's what the AND operator does here, is it evaluates whether both Boolean variables are set to true. If either one of them is set to false, or of course if both of them are set to false, then this is going to be set to false, and we know that the system itself is not ready for the move phase. Same thing down here. When both of them are ready to fire, then this thing returns true, but if one or both of these values is false, then this thing is going to return false. So this is keeping track of whether the system is ready to move. Whether system is ready for move phase. Actually, let's put it as a question. Is system ready for move phase? And then is system ready for fire phase? There we go. I suppose I could call it the firing phase. Actually, let's call it the moving phase. firing phase, because that's what we've got as our logicals down here. And so that's really the only edits I had to make to this. I also had to initialize these to false, because if when they get done, when this thing triggers, it's not going to then set these to false. So I have to set them to false at the beginning in order to just kind of make sure that they don't, end up taking an infinite number of shots like happened the last time I ran it without this. So the next thing we have to do is we have to change the conditions under which the ships move. So this is the ship mover routine. This is a script that gets attached to both the player ship and the enemy ship. And if we ever end up with multiple enemy ships or a friendly ship, this will have to get attached to them as well, which of course means my manage turns is going to need to be updated, but we will worry about that at a later date. I suppose one way I could do that would be to turn this into a loop over all the ships. Let me make a note of that later. Turn this into a loop over all ships, and I could just maintain a list of ships, and then ready to move just gets modified based on all of those booleans. Oh, good. I'm getting some progress made in this video. All right. So this is the fixed update. Again, it gets called once per frame, but it's only going to be doing stuff when it's told that it's ready to for each of the phases. So for rotating, that gets set to true back over here in manage turns. You might recall down here, once we're ready to update the state, then it tells us that we are ready to rotate by how does it do that? Oh yeah, it calls the ship mover. Oh, yeah, it calls move ship. Excuse me. Yes, it calls move ship. Here underneath this, we've got somewhere something called move ship. Yeah, and that sets rotating equal to true, done equal to false. And so right after that happens, the next frame, this chunk of the code for rotating gets activated. So this is the chunk that takes care of the rotating. And the next we have the chunk that takes care of the moving. So previously, this if statement just said if moving. And so as soon as you were done rotating, you set rotating equal to false and moving equal to true. So previously this would just get triggered as soon as the rotating was done, and it would continue to move until it had moved for a certain amount of time. How did it keep track of that? Oh yeah. I should have read where I was before I started scrolling. They keep track of that in this block, so it's going to move for a certain amount of game time, at which point it'll set moving equal to false and firing equal to true. But for right now, instead of checking for if moving, it's checking for if the control panel says that you are ready to move. So now this manage turn script that's attached to the control panel is now choreographing both ships, because remember, this script is attached to both ships. But they're both referencing the same value of ready to move here. And so when this moving gets turned to false and the firing gets turned to true, that's going to trigger in here, like we just saw, for ready to move to be set to false and for ready to fire to possibly be set to true when they are both ready to fire. So if I keep scrolling down, I get to the firing chunk, and again, this used to say if firing. Now it's saying if the control panel says we are ready to fire. And so again, the manage turn script is choreographing or coordinating both of our ships, and it works out pretty well. I've run this a couple of times. I've run a few moves on this, a few turns, I guess I should say. Let's take one more look just to illustrate what's happening. We are going to need to respawn here, I think. Again, another change I need to make is for the black holes not to spawn near the ships. Okay, here we've got a pretty decent clearing. Actually, I thought I fixed that last time, didn't I? I don't know. I will go back and check that off camera. So what we'll do, let's see. So the enemy ship, I'm guessing, is going to be able to successfully take a turn. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to thrust straight ahead, because I don't want to turn too much and get too close to this guy. So I'm going to try to thread the needle here. That needs to be an accomplishment that you can unlock threading the needle. So I'm going to thrust pretty... I'm going to turn up the engines pretty well here, and I'm going to fire a shot. So here's what should happen. I'm not going to rotate. So assuming he rotates, my ship, the gray one, should wait for his ship, the purple one, to rotate, and then we both move, and then when we're both done moving, we should both fire. And I'm going to pay attention to the scene view up here, because my game view doesn't really have the enemy ship in view yet. Alright, let's click go. Oh, he did not rotate, but we did fire at the same time. Alright, so let's this time have me rotate. And this time I will not thrust and just fire. So now he should wait for me to rotate. Oh, we both rotated. So, I thought I said to fire. Oh, my go button is not back. What just happened? Oh, neither of us moved. Oh, wow. I think that's what happened. Did neither of us move? Is that what just happened? Let's see here. That was weird. Let's see here. Moving equals false, firing equals true. Alright, clearly I have some bugs to work out here. I'm wondering if both of us elected not to move in that case, if that messed it up. Let's see. Ready to move, thrust, yada yada. Alright, let's try that again. Let's see if we can get that to reproduce. I'm probably going to need to put in some print statements and diagnose a little bit better. I don't think he's going to survive that black hole, but we'll give him a chance. All right. He rotates. I rotate. Oh yeah, I didn't select to thrust. I guess he didn't select to thrust. So there's some problem. All right, this was going to be a short video, but now I need to diagnose this. I'll tell you what, let me take a little bit of a break here, and then I will come back with an update to see if I can figure out what's going on with this. Alright, so I've put in some print statements about what they are doing in terms of rotating and moving. So the other ship was rotating, so he did take a rotation. You can see that he rotated there. This was our first turn. You can see that I had no intention of moving, but he was going to be moving, but now he's not. So I need to check what's going on under... oops, wrong. Yeah. I need to check what's going on under this moving here. So let's see here. So I said print game object name is moving plus I thrust to string. If time. Oh, I see what happened here, because I said that I wasn't moving. So I have it set to where if I thrust equals 0, it just skips the moving phase. Okay. And so my manage turns is saying, oh, if one of you is done moving, both of you are done moving. Okay, so it was a bit too simple. Okay, tell you what, let me cut away again. I'm going to work out the logic of this thing, and I'll be back in just a second. Alright, I believe I fixed it. I just had to make one change. So previously in the moving subroutine, in the moving chunk, I don't want to call it subroutine because it's just a chunk in a subroutine. But previously in this bit of code, the moving would get set to false if ITHR, the thrust command, was equal to 0, meaning it was doing no thrusting. Which actually is the wrong thing to do, because that means you don't get sucked into a black hole. You don't get affected by the gravity if you're not thrusting. So that's not the correct thing to do. That actually explains some weird behavior I was seeing earlier. So I've gotten rid of that part. So this if conditional is the same as this one, except it doesn't have that or I thrust equals 0. I'm going to keep this as a note that this was bad code. Not bad code, it's bad logic. There we go. So what it's doing now is it's letting the clock run up on each of those. And so now we're back to being synchronized even if we take different actions. So for example, I've tested it a few times and it seems to be working. And now that I'm doing it for the video, it will, if it's going to break, it will break. So for example, in this first turn, I'm going to do nothing. Actually, I will fire just to indicate that mine is active. So he should be rotating, moving before both of us fire now. All right, he rotates, and of course I moved. I wasn't thrusting, but I moved under the influence of the black hole, and I died. Let's try the same thing again here. He's going to die. All right, he's going to die again. All right, yeah, let's just keep respawning until we get something we want. All right, so I'm going to fire shot. So he should rotate, move, and then we both fire at the same time. All right, so Alright, he ended up not rotating. He decided not to rotate. Okay, but we both moved at the same time, and we both fired. I'm a little bit concerned now that he's not rotating if I am rotating. Rotate, move, fire, shot. Okay, he was thrusting there, it looks like. Let's go down to that last one. Ship firing 1, other ships moving. Okay, so he was thrusting throughout that last turn, even though I was not. Okay. So I think we're... Oh, I need to go away from that black hole. I think we're up to snuff here. So we should be able to... Okay, so I rotated then. He chose not to rotate. I'm having to go through all the possible permutations in my head. I'm going to continue to test this just to make sure, but I believe we've got it working now. So this is a pretty good mark of progress that our turn-based system actually works on turns now. I need to increase the safety radius for these folks before when the black holes are spawning. I'll fiddle with that off camera as well. The next thing I also need to do is to make the enemy ship a little bit smarter. I need to fine-tune the trajectory generators and the cost evaluation. But at least now we've got a more sane test here with our ships moving synchronized with each other. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.